Now, yesterday, we were discussing Notre Dame and their popularity, and we can say whether or not, if they want truly $75 million for their next TV deal with NBC, if whatever they get, they're trying to get as much, because right now we know what the Big Ten and also the SEC are getting, and then there's the Pac-12, Big 12, and ACC where they are, in no particular order. Here is a look at the top 10 games here are the games they played last year in college football. The top 10, Garrett, back. The top 10 most watched games in college football. Now, we've discussed some of these when Craig used to do Off the Radar consistently during football season. There's the Michigan-Ohio State game, not a surprise. Two huge schools, and huge importance in that game. Tennessee-Georgia, big-time game. Alabama-Tennessee. LSU, Georgia in the championship. Then Purdue-Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. Alabama-Texas to kick off the year.
Purdue's not the sexiest opponent there, but there was a playoff spot right
that's exactly right. Yeah, Alabama-Texas to kick off the year in week 2, which was a monstrous game and a great game. Notre Dame-Ohio State, there's Notre Dame with the 7th highest single game. Now, Ohio State's been mentioned now twice in there. Also, then you have K-State, TCU in the Big 12 championship game. Everybody tuned in. Is TCU going to do this?
Playoff spot.
Kansas State, great story. 2 very small schools compared to everybody else, but it was number 8, Alabama, Ole Miss, and then Ohio State again for the 3rd time in this list against Penn State, 2 Blue Bloods who played at number 10. Those are all the top 10 most watched games in college football, and Notre Dame is at number 7 against Ohio State. But what's the last number on there? The last overall number 8. Now, go to Notre Dame game by game. This did not include the game with Marshall, which I believe was streamed on Peacock. But you look at the numbers. The Boston College game is down. But look at the one at the very end in USC. 6.68 million. 2 teams, 2 Blue Bloods, and a lot riding on that game with Caleb Williams and USC, and then, of course, Notre Dame too. So they're healthy, all across the board, healthy. Now, it was the game with Ohio State and the game with USC, but there is their week in and week out numbers from 2022 per Sports Media Watch, and thanks to Jim Williams for sending that information my way.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really surprised by any of that. I mean, I think, the Big Ten and the SEC are obviously, reaching a sort of a different level, and that's probably what those year-end rankings are going to look like more often than not. I don't know, with an expanded playoff, if maybe that puts more eyeballs on some other late-season games for other conferences that otherwise might not be there, because now you have more teams that are potentially playing to get a spot, right? So maybe that puts more eyeballs on the Pac-12 or the ACC championship game or Big 12 or whoever that otherwise in most years wouldn't even be involved. But now they're looking for like the guaranteed spot and the ninth spot potentially. And so, yeah, now you got more people from across the country that are watching. As far as our conversation yesterday about Notre Dame goes, I won't for 1 second pretend they're not a draw. My only thing was I just don't think that the mystique that people talk about, like, oh, bow down, it's Notre Dame, I don't think that that's as existent as it used to be. But by no means does that mean that I was anyway inferring, or you accused me of that, but nor was I in any way inferring that they don't still have a massive fan base that's going to draw massive ratings and make massive amounts of money. Like, that's never changing. They got the whole world behind them. But in terms of just the mystique, yeah, I don't think that that's as much as it was, but they're still a massive brand.
I think the draw for NBC to keep going back is not just the brand. It's that you saw those numbers. They are remarkably consistent.
Yep.
So it's not even the fact that, like, okay, you could say Notre Dame, go off to whatever you want. We're going to go somewhere else. But because of the way that everybody else's rights are divided up, there's very few things that you're going to guarantee are going to be that consistent. So networks like what they know is consistent. Okay, this is going to be $2 to $3 million a week, and we're going to have a couple games that might be $7 million, and that's good. And you'll take a lump on Boston College, because that wasn't Notre Dame's fault. That was Boston College's fault. It was towards the end of the year. They were really bad,
And by the way, like, that'll be a lower number for them, but that's still better than majority of the country every week. Like, not everybody hits $1 million that easily, so that's still a healthy number.
Yeah, so
go ahead, and I'll finish up when you're done.
The worst opponent they played last year was probably Boston College, and so you get the 1.27 one time, but you still got $1 million in that whole thing of your viewership. So the consistency is what keeps Notre Dame coming back. And that's why they can go ahead and ask for more money, because we've seen the numbers across the board of like, okay, so say they get the Pac-12. Great. That'd be great for the Pac-12. It'd be awesome if we get to see more games. But, they're also not going to be guaranteed that a team that in that spot has as much drawing power as Notre Dame, because it could be Cal, who doesn't have a big drawing power, right?
Right. Yeah, you're starting off with bare minimum. You're getting 1 million viewers no matter who they're even playing. Now you add in, like, look, everything's pointing towards they want bigger and bigger matchups. That's what brings in the eyeball. So, yeah, Ohio State, Notre Dame, USC, Notre Dame, they want more of that. And that's why there's also a lot of people that would love for them to be in a conference to go ahead and situate that all up and have that just, ready to go every year where you can reel off games like that. I mean, Notre Dame's schedule is always going to be jam-packed, with typically good name teams at the very worst. But, yeah, I mean, I think that people in charge would love to see them eliminate, maybe a couple of the teams they're playing for, Big Ten teams or for SEC teams or whatever, and have that conference backdrop to it as well. But, yeah, I mean, they're starting off with $1 million at worst, and that's some numbers that, there's a lot of schools that play on Saturdays that don't reach that, but maybe a few times a year, much less that's their worst mark of the entire season. So, yeah, they're a juggernaut as far as TV sets go.
I missed what I said. Marshall was streamed. I don't think they were. But here's another note, and somebody in the chat room said this, and then a note about a transfer from the SEC at quarterback, is that they're on NBC and ABC, I think, a lot. So they're on the big boys. And even with all due respect to ESPN or anyone else, FS1, they're on 2 megas. They've earned that. And they also have drawn, but that doesn't hurt that you're not on a couple of alternate games that when you're on big boy, the networks, like the main ones, as much as they are. But over the years, no matter the little wilderness they were in at times, they have earned that as well. So we'll see what happens when that comes up. And that was just a nice little story to kind of discuss yesterday, looking at Notre Dame, and they're wanting $75 million. Now, in the